time, Nomura was able to wriggle off the hook with 1:30 to go, and now they hold a favored position.
We're not going to have it. They called to each other.
Game here is to get up to full speed. KR makes his move first, and he'll be going faster when the gun goes off.
Go down below the line. 20. 17. 14. 13. 4, 3, 2, 1, shot.
Another clean start and another good job by Dellenbaugh.
Hi. This past Sunday, I was pleased to be joined by Maya Adkisson and Dr. J. Bundy on Skeptic Haven's program, Women Atheists Unload. I present a recording of that here in hope of getting a little bit of a wider audience for a really great discussion about the nature of discourse in skeptic and atheist spaces of issues of science and social affairs. How do we do that? Are we effective? What can we do better? So I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a comment on what we discussed here. Maybe go off and give Skeptic Haven some love for everything they're doing. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Hello, hello, hello.
I was caught on the other tab. Welcome to Women Atheists Unload. Today we have a couple of guests. We'll be talking about conversations about science and social issues, etc., within a skeptical context. Some would say an atheist context, but it's not necessarily limited to atheism per se. But how do we have those conversations in spaces like this? What do they look like? How can we be most effective in promoting, conveying, discussing values of skepticism in both the social and the scientific realm? So today we have with us Maya Adkisson, who works more in the social area aspects of things, and Dr. J. Bundy, who is a evolutionary biologist with currently teaching, I believe, at the University of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Yep. I work at the University of Minnesota. Yep, and I teach a class at Michigan State. I'm a little all over the place.
Okay. Well, see, there's a couple of M's, and it always confuses me.
Yes.
But why don't we, Maya, if you'd care to say a few words about yourself and your background, that'd be great. And then Jay.
Yeah, my name is Maya Adkisson. You can find me at Maya Adkisson. Yeah, is it right over here and all of the things? I have a master's degree in behavioral psychology. So science is very near and dear to my heart. Not only in just like the science perspective, because I spent most of my career working in healthcare, working with employees, training, developing, to make sure that, you know, we are the best and the brightest in Baltimore, going out there and, you know, helping our communities or families, so on and so forth. But also on the social aspect, understanding that people who understand things for good reason tend to bring that in all aspects of our lives. So I do kind of go at it on both fronts. So you can find me usually on my channels every Sunday for Bad Science Sunday, where we challenge beliefs and encourage good thinking while drinking.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Nothing
And Jay?
wrong with that. Yeah, I'm Dr. Jay Bundy, and yeah, as Steph said, I'm an evolutionary biologist. Got my PhD at Michigan State University in the Lenski lab, working on the longest evolution experiment in the history of science, the E. coli LTE, and kind of made a digital version of it. That's basically what a lot of my research is about, is using a digital version of the LTE to study history. But yeah, my background, like I was also at Penn State, and I worked in a department of sociology for Sam Richards on the race relations project, and helped teach a course called the sociology of race, and had lots of racial discussions. So I'm used to sort of facilitating, conversations about sensitive topics, and training people how to do that. I got my master's degree in biological anthropology at Penn State, studying human evolution. So, the gut stuff like guts at Gibbon is right up my alley. And also, in addition to doing my biological research now, what's relevant discussion is I also do research on biology education, do some education research. And, I've become aware of sort of the scientific literature on how harmful some, narratives around some of these topics, these biological issues, are to marginalized people. And that's been sort of motivating me lately to think a little bit more critically and deeply about the engagements I have online.
Thanks a lot. It'll be interesting. I hope this conversation will be really interesting, because it is focused on how we approach these serious topics, and you folks are directly involved in teaching these things to the general public or interacting with people. And I want to make it clear, this is Women Atheists Unload. This does not necessarily mean that we limit our guests or our topics exclusively to women's issues, but I think it'd be a good idea maybe to start in that arena, insofar as we very often interact with theists, people who bring a theist perspective, particularly a conservative theistic perspective, that informs their approach to women's issues, especially touching on biology. And how do you think where do you think we succeed? Where do you think we fail when we are talking about issues like women's rights, to making decisions about their reproductive choices, and anything else? I wonder if we could start there and maybe move on from there. Any thoughts, Maya?
Sure. I think while these are women's issues, I don't think it's pragmatic to close men out, and I hear a lot of that rhetoric. So I'm really glad Jay's here to kind of represent that side of this. Women's issues are men issues. Men are having conversations with women about abortion. Men are having conversations with women about their wives, their significant others, about major surgeries, especially those that are going to affect their ability to contribute to the household, rear the children, just daily life. I mean, if it's your SO, regardless of whether or not you're married, they're going to be helping take care of you. They should understand what you're going through. I think it's very dangerous to shut men out or tell them to take a back seat, not just because of the short-sightedness of it on the face, but also the long-term implications. And I had to say this to someone the other day. It was like, when you tell me something, I'm not making a decision about just this decision. I'm broadening it, right? What does this look like outside of this decision? How do I make this consistent? And people like patterns. We like, we have pattern-seeking brains, and people will fare better if they have an expectation in mind. So you can't say, okay, well, men can talk about this, but not that. Men are going to see that as inherently unfair, which humans do not like. It is bringing about an us versus them mentality to say that. So we need to work on ways that we can work together, and bringing men into these conversations says, yes, you have a seat at the table. Yes, you should weigh in. It brings buy-in so that men don't feel like the whether it's legislation or any other decision is being put upon them begrudgingly, that they have some they're weighing in. This is their decision too. And when you're looking for people to acquiesce, you need to have buy-in for that. And I see this, whether it's from a social standpoint, from an employee standpoint, when corporate comes to me and says, okay, we're doing this, what I'm doing is going to each individual department and saying, okay, I need to make this happen. What does that look like from you? What do you need from me so that we can do this together? And when the employees say, okay, we don't like this, but here's what we can contribute, and then they see themselves in it, you're more likely to get for things to not fail, and for the job to be done better. And I think that we're lacking that on the political side, where a lot of people, I think a lot of what's going on right now, especially on the right, is that they don't understand how things are being done, or even the legalities of it. I say to people all the time, and I know it's a sidebar, but it's just like, immigrants can't affect your life this badly. They have no pull. They have no rights. Someone this low in the totem pole can't have this big of an influence over your life. But when they can see what's going on, when they feel like their input means something, they're less likely to make shit up. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can cuss here, but one of my favorite phrases is people like to make stuff
hell
up.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
When they don't understand what's going on. And, I see that a lot on my channel where people, you have these crazy things. Why is there a flat earth? Why is there a Bigfoot? Why is there, all these other crazy things? It is because people don't understand the world around them. And it is easier to make things up because you can work within your own framework, and you can make it easy, and you can bring something down to your level. Dr. J will tell us, science is under no obligation to make sense to you.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes
Absolutely.
Our brains didn't evolve to intuitively understand the world in which they work. They evolved to understand how to feed, how to survive. That's what our brains know very much, is how to survive. And when people are making shit up, it's their brains struggling to find a pattern, struggling to try to survive. And if we can, which is why I'm pushing education so much, if we can just get that knowledge out to them, it minimizes the propensity for them to want to make shit up. And it enhances our ability to be able to work with one another in a way that's more conducive for the 99%. So why do I think that women's issues matter? What do I think is best? I think we need to pull men in. I think it's best because men run the world. That's it. You can't lock them out. You can't push them to the side. They won't go. We need them in the fight. No struggle in America, at least, has been won without white men, and a lot of them on the side of the marginalized groups. We just do need them, like it or not. And whether it's voting rights, abortion rights, what have you, we need to cross that bridge and do whatever it takes to get them on our side, and so that we can live in the world that we want. And it's not, if you're saying that, I don't want to be oppressed, then getting to that point isn't going to come at, suppressing the opinions of anyone on the other side. So
Yeah,
I'll shut
you
up and
know,
let Jay
my
talk for a while.
before Jay jumps in, something just struck my mind, which is Abigail Adams writing to her husband John, who I believe was at the Constitutional Convention. It might have been the
I want to say women's rights, women's suffrage.
The Declaration gathering, the Second Continental Congress, where she wrote in a letter, "I pray you remember the ladies." And I think, you know, what you were saying about men need to be involved, men are involved.
Yes.
Men since that day have frequently been loath to remember the ladies. And these are not women's issues or men's issues. They're human issues. And we are not a successful species without all of us working together for our own, for the advancement of a better world for ourselves and our posterity. So, Jay, carry on.
Sure. So, you know, a couple things that I definitely see as very encouraging is the enthusiasm for science, the enthusiasm to sort of carry the torch for the scientific method, scientific virtues, and empiricism. I see that as one of the things I say to sort of pay the highest compliment to our community is that it's truly a learning community. It is truly a place that people go and they could be doing anything, but they're actually learning. They're seeking out people who have done research. They're seeking out people who may be academics. They're even in some of the interactions that I am not always a fan of, they're debating. They're having conversations about critical issues across that critical issues. People don't understand that is the dream of a university. That is what you want to see on campus, is that your students are enthused to be in class, they're enthused to learn, and then as soon as they leave that classroom, they're enthused to put it into practice and try it out on their own and see how it goes. And so I really, when I say those two simple terms like learning community, it is really like the highest compliment I can pay to people. I also see genuine enthusiasm to sort of be on side. One of the things that comes up in the literature about marginalization, especially about students, is that one of the issues is a sort of false sense of neutrality, the sense that, you know, if you're a scientist or an educator, it's all about the facts. And so you are sort of neutral, you're sitting on the fence, you know, the facts will be the facts and you don't play a role. And that is an issue, especially with marginalized people, because then they don't know where they're safe. They don't know where they're advocated for. They don't know where they belong, where people want them, right? And so it's important to be explicit about the fact that, for instance, like it was so happy to say to my students, I'm not neutral. You know, if you're here and there's something different about you, I'm your advocate. And if I'm ever falling short, you need to let me know because it's important to me. And so I see a lot of that enthusiasm, and I think that that's wonderful. I think where I see growth opportunities are, one, the demographics of the culture are still such that women's voices are not centered enough. And there's also not, I would feel, a recognition of the harm of a lot of the problematic narratives. And so that hits me like a ton of bricks, like, because so often when we have these conversations, it's sort of your side versus the other side. Oh, if you have a strong reaction, that's you're passionate about something, that's your feelings, okay? right? Maybe you're caught up in your feelings, particularly because of your life experience, and people can be sensitive because you've lived through it. No, if we're going to be scientific, if we're going to be empirical, let's say, no, there's harm. That harm is there. And anytime you expose the marginalized people to those narratives, there is a risk, right? And somebody's going to pay the price for that risk. And just sort of sitting with that and thinking of that more upfront when we go into certain things, and then also a sort of struggle to focus on those issues. Even I was sort of talking to this about Bree, like a lot of this culture, a lot of the debate culture, the conversation culture, it has been set according to patriarchal norms, right? And so I think a lot of it is we're not having enough conversations about the conversation. That's why this was so cleverly called the sociology, right? Because that's what the sociologists would be interested in. How is the dynamic of power and all of that playing out between groups? And there are ways in which we are participating in the culture that we're not thinking about that up front enough for me, and the effect that that's having, because it perpetuates the voicelessness. It perpetuates almost saying we're a bunch of men willing to sit around and have these conversations with the people who would take away the rights of our partners, who would take away the rights of our daughters and our friends. And we seem happy to talk about insert anti-scientific issue here. Is the earth flat? Was the world created in 7 days? Is there really, are humans really contributing to global warming? Right. And so often we get excited about, well, I got a great new argument. I got great new evidence. I'm going to go in and really hit him with the stuff, and not realizing that maybe we're still contributing to the culture of distraction rather the culture of addressing the issues at hand. And then finally, just not listening. Be it having issues about these issues and not recognizing, even if there's women in the chat or women in the comments section who are giving us feedback that we need to take more critically. And then, of course, we've all sat through the panel where there's a bunch of men talking, there's women on the panel, nobody's listening to them, people are talking over them. Every time they start talking, what they're trying to bring the conversation to is not taken to be priority as the male participants. Some of that stuff is just, we've got to watch the game tape and realize we can do better.
Yeah, Jay, you brought up several interesting topics, and maybe we can broaden it out from here. The one that struck me was like slapped upside the head was you can literally be in a conversation with in a situation where your interlocutor says, well, so-and-so's a bigot. What's wrong with that? And that seems like an interesting conversation technique to move the conversation away from the effects of the bigotry onto whether the bigotry is right or wrong. You see how that okie doke works? It's a cute little technique, and I wonder if some of these conversations are insincere in that regard. I'm sincerely looking for an approach to take when we have these conversations, because you don't want to get bogged down in that switch in the topic. It's like, oh, you said this, and well, if you're, for instance, talking about ideologies that would take away voting rights for a certain class of people, and that being an aspect of a totalitarian approach to governance, and the topic is the totalitarian approach to governance, your interlocutor will suddenly say, well, what's wrong with restricting voting rights to this class of people, that class of people? Which is a really clever way of getting off topic. I wonder if any of you guys have, are we doing it right? Is basically and is there a right way and a wrong way to approach these topics, particularly when you're dealing with people who are putting forth an inherently unskeptical approach to
I think it depends
these discussions.
Depends on the person. My biggest thing is know your strengths and know your weaknesses. So, there's a reason you've never seen me on, a popular quote unquote debate platform. It's, not just because of trash garbage, but it's not my thing, right? You're going to say something that my biggest pet peeve, and I know this about myself, are people who waste my time. I'm not going to fare well with a wits it gets it, right? I'm going to rage out and rage quit. But I try to keep my eye on the prize. That's going to damage my position, being Black or a woman or, whatever the issue is on the table. It's not like I can't have the conversation. And I've had a lot of these conversations, I can do it really well here with people who actually want to help. I have the conversation, but with, dishonest interlocutors, I understand that that's not my forte. So I'm not going to go on those platforms and have those conversations on their terms. And, however, if that makes me look weak, so be it. My eye is on the prize of not damaging what's there. And right now, I know that for Black people and women, which are my two major groups that I advocate for, we're currently ahead. People don't believe that women, while you may innately think that, oh, well, everybody knows that Black people aren't as smart as white people, or everybody knows that men are smarter than women, it's still a faux pas to say it out loud. You're not going to gain a lot of advocates outside of 4chan saying this out loud. So for me to come on and rage out is going to damage it. I'm now going to be the person that they platforms like, see, I told you about these women. They're just stupid. We shouldn't allow them out of the house. And God forbid we allow them to vote, which they're really trying to do right now. And I don't want to help them. So I think it's really, one, important to understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, be on top of the issues, know when you can have the conversation, know when you can't have the conversation, and stay out of your own way. And if you can't find your way, stay out of mine. Because it's when you're yelling at people, you're not being helpful, just period, point blank. And I know it feels good, but, and I'm, not saying this to anybody in particular, but like, I think, we saw on, again, different platform about 2 months ago when a very popular person raged out and their very dishonest interlocutor gained a lot of subs when they by rights should have lost them. It doesn't help. It just doesn't help us. And when what they're saying is non-Christian white men are too stupid to run the country, to vote, to hold any, position in business, to leave the house as anything other than worker bees, or to stay in the house as anything other than, an incubator. We have to be very careful about how we're presenting ourselves in public. I think that's insanely important. And then 2, there's sometimes when, it may be Thanksgiving when you just need to rage out on your uncle at the dinner table. And if that's what your uncle needs to hear you, because he's going to overtalk you and talk about his Trump stuff, there's sometimes when you have to be big and bold and stand up and scare the bear. I understand that there's some people that works on, but on an online platform, that's not the thing. And you need to understand what each person is going to relate to and get on that level. And I think that's kind of the best advice. I was saying, I can't remember where it was. It might have been my own channel. I say so much so often. There's no magic pill. There's no one thing that's going to, get rid of, all the bigots, all of, the, Muslims, all of the, whatever your transphobes, whatever your thing of choice is. There's no,
Maya,
everybody came
one of
into
the
a
things I
position on one
really,
reason. They're going to leave on a different reason, and you need to get on that level. That was my last point.
one of the things I think you do extraordinarily well with Bad Science Sunday is point and laugh.
Yeah,
I think that's a tremendously effective thing to do.
We need to normalize
nonsense.
laughing at Nazis, because that is the correct
Right.
response. When somebody hears Nazi rhetoric, they need to be like, "Oh yeah, you're stupid." Moving on.
And shunned as well.
Right.
It's like, we're just not listening to this. I mean,
Yeah.
Mel Brooks made a career out of laughing at Nazis and ridiculous stuff. And this is, unfortunately, unfortunately, Blazing Saddles has become a documentary at this point in time. And you'd like more people to just say, hey, yeah, this is absurd. This is completely absurd, which is the point of good satire and a good, and what you do on your show on Sunday. I think it's very, very, very effective. I think actually more effective than heated debates with people who are just there for the promotion of these ideas,
To recruit.
right? Mm-hmm. Jay, what do you got?
So many thoughts.
Spill.
Wow. All right. So one thing is, I kind of want to give a PSA kind of disclaimer. I think it's helpful to talk about particular channels. I think it's helpful to talk about particular examples at times. And to the extent that y'all do that, I'm here for it. I just want to say to the audience, we are trying to focus on the issues. And the first issue we need to overcome is let go of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and admit that a lot of the problematic things we're talking about, I've done. And I think that's important because we have to, I want to be a hypocrite, right? I want to die a hypocrite. I want to die a person who did things, learned from it, and then changed. And so I'm not here. Don't take away from this that I'm critiquing your favorite channel or your favorite content creator. Right. We're just trying to have a conversation about tactics, about social dynamics.
Exactly.
And we can't ever change or grow or become a different community if we won't even allow ourselves to have the conversation about considering the idea of doing things differently.
Right.
Right. And that's all we're really here talking about.
Those conversations need to take place. I don't think the heated parts of the conversations, at least, need to take place online. We need to have these little we need to have little spaces where perhaps we can chat through. Well, this is problematic. What do we do about it?
I think it depends on who it is.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I know I have a bit of a reputation for being contentious, and I don't. If you see me raging out in side chat, I'm not going off half-cocked. It's strategic. If I can get somebody to say, okay, I'll stop doing this, I'll meet them on Discord or Twitter, wherever. I'll have a conversation offline. I'd prefer that, but I'm not going to just let it go. You need to hear me. And this is what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to be loud. I'm not saying that there's never, ever a place to be bold. This is what demonstrations, protests, and I'm not saying burn the city down, but these things are all designed to gather attention towards a subject. There are places for a strategic disruption, but you've also got to have a goal in mind. Why am I doing this? What are the terms upon which I'm willing to calm down or back off, whatever the case may be. I've gone on to streamer shows, and there are people here who've been in the side chats where I just cuss the streamer out mid-show, and I think I'm modded on all of those channels now. And it's not, and again, I'm not saying that because it's a great strategy. The great strategy was, one, getting their attention, and then two, once I had it, knowing what was reasonable to do after that. And I'm going to tell you, it was different for each and every single one of those people. And again, it wasn't half cocked. I was like, hey, me. And like, okay, Maya, you got my attention. What? Right. I need to get to your level because you've got to stop doing this. This is what it means to me. Where can we meet? Because I need you to understand this issue. And it made us stronger at the end of the day, which is why I'm modded, not because I'm, a silly kid, but and I think that's it's really important to understand that you have to have strategy whenever you go into these conversations, whenever you decide to go into this field. And I'm saying to everybody, I need you to be aware of just basic things. I said, I think to Mark Reed about a month ago, I don't expect you to go on your channel and start talking on behalf of the trans community. But if you're in a barbershop and somebody's like, what about these confused boys that think they're girls? You need to know at least enough to shut that conversation down, to at least make them think, hey, maybe I should actually look into this instead of listening to Alex Jones about it, or whoever. To plant that seed. So I've been talking way too much. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Jay talk.
One of the things I thought of yesterday, I think, and I think Jay and you and I were chatting about it a little bit. We didn't get too far into it. Is the amount of time that many of the people in the community that I know spend studying the Bible, researching all the arguments about ontological, and in every other sense, like putting these arguments that theists have on the operating table and examining every single little element of them is astonishing. We often know a good deal and are in a good position to engage, right? And do that position, counterposition, have the debate and all of that stuff. I don't think they do the same. The amount of you run into so much ignorance over topics like what is evolution, what is human biology, let alone any kind of biology, beyond the extremely elemental levels. I find it a source of tremendous frustration when I'm speaking with someone who doesn't know what the science actually is. And that puts us in a position of having to, or, if we choose to engage, which we may or may not, puts us in a position of, we're automatically on the defensive because they're challenging from a position of fundamental ignorance.
No, I say that all the time. Jay, I want you to talk on this because I know you've taken up evolution like as your like a personal thing, at least for the beginning of this year. I went at the one thing I do see everybody tripping over in the community is people will move the goalpost and people will they'll say something that, and so many of us have ADHD, and it's like, no, I can't let this one point go, and then we're down the rabbit hole. I love having conversations in the side chat because I can remember, okay, what was the last thing, and it helps me stay focused. You need to figure out what the topic is, and you need to stay on that topic. And when they go on to something else, maybe write in the side notes or circle back to it. But you need to, I think I've seen this on like a lot of the call-in shows. There are people who are good at doing this, and Mark Reed is actually really good at doing this, where it's like, no, we're discussing this aspect. This is my question. We need to get to this question. Now we can talk about the side thing that you don't understand. I'm very happy to, but can we finish this question first? And then once you get them to either acquiesce or agree, then we can move on to, okay, you said you wanted to do X, Y, or Z, or you wanted to challenge me on something. Now we can talk about that now that we finished that. But I think the biggest issue is just like they just keep, they know that they're stuck on something, and rather than concede defeat, they're like, well, what about you, or what about that, or what about what about our emails? Okay, fine. What about Bob? This was the topic, right? Isn't this what you said you initially had an issue with? Why aren't we get them on that?
Bob is the best. Bob being strapped to the mast and going, I'm sailing, is the best. It's the best, Maya. Come on.
That was the best.
Come on. Jay, come on. Get it. Let's.
All right. So
I'm sorry. These chatty women have been just.
No, I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
I can do this for
hours. I'm in the back seat, just soaking it all in. A couple things I did want to speak to, which is why I sort of gave the warning, so hopefully people are a little bit disarmed, is I do see so many things going on. And one of the things that's really been important to me lately is sort of the idea of centering. And I see so many of these things play out. And again, I don't want to tell people what to do or how to do it or to do or not do. I want people to consider these things, right? I want us to really start to thinking. And so for me, there really is an important need to center on marginalization. From my perspective, it's a matter of survival. I happen to have the intersection of several marginalized identities myself, as does most of my support group. So, we just out here trying to live. But for other people who I think come out of, say, maybe a religious tradition that they find is harmful, which may have came with social or political ideas that they felt is harmful, or they consider themselves progressive or more of a humanist and things like these. These identities, if that's what you're going to claim, they're about creating human equity. When you say I'm progressive, when you say I care, when you say I'm here to fight against the harmful effects of religion, largely what we're talking about is how it has further marginalized certain people. At least for a lot of people, that's the priority. And if that's the case, we then have to shift our focus to the actual marginalized people. And so some of the things I see going on that are just things I'd like to see us think through is the ways in which we fall for the wokey doke a lot, right? So you brought up, for instance, debates we have where a person, gets upset and says, I don't want to do this anymore because this person has gone after a particular marginalized group, right? Or said something offensive in that regard. Well, what you see so often is rather than us center on our marginalized people and act in solidarity with them, you actually see maybe a consensus of people saying, well, what about the debate? There was an opportunity to score points. There was an opportunity to, show that we're right. And when I hear that conversation, I'm just going, I'm recognizing, right? And this is what we say, looking at it sociologically, we're recognizing groups that have different priorities. I also see that a lot of times the engagement that we get is a sort of recruitment. So many of these times I see someone and I'm not happy about their engagement. It has nothing to do with how intelligently they argue the topic. It has nothing to do with how prepared or how much they know about the topic matter. It's that I go, these people are working on you. And you don't seem to notice that they're working on you so they can get over on us. And and that's the issue. And then finally, I was just going to say, sometimes they're also inviting the people into our spaces. We create a safe space where we can be critical about these things, where we can talk to each other about what's going on, which sometimes involves tearing those things down that are harming us. And all of a sudden, you go engage with that other side. Now here they come, and all of a sudden, we've got these new people in our side chat with no purpose other than literally to distract us, to undermine our voices, to challenge everything that comes out of our mouths, to agitate our community. And again, that you can easily create a situation like that where you're doing more harm than good. Sorry, Steph. Thanks for letting me finish that.
No. That's fine. And I'm thinking, I think we're all aware, or at least we all should be aware, of the fact that this is called media for a reason. It's not. We're you might think of it as writing a letter to the editor or something like that, but in a visual and literary medium, performance medium, performance is part of the gig, right? People start a YouTube channel because they want to get a message out to the world, or they want to entertain, or they want to do this or that. And at the end of the day, they're not doing it. Mostly, they're not doing it to be ignored. They're doing it to engage. And the flip side of that is the engagement can come with people who will push back and and that engagement sets up a tension. To what extent do you want to grow your channel on controversy? And when you grow your channel on controversy, is that actually accomplishing what your original intent was to do? For example, if you wanted to educate people about evolutionary biology, you can do that by going after bad ideas in evolutionary biology that are being popularized by some other person, and immediately you set up this tension, and immediately you'll have tons of people saying, "Oh, I want to hear what so and so has to say about such and such or the other so and so," and immediately you'll build engagement in that regard. But you've got to balance the desire for eyeballs on screens and asses in seats with what you're actually trying to accomplish.
Right.
Okay,
You see what I mean?
Someone said that, when did you expand on your point about how to broadcast?
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is just the ways in which the other side is strategic. They're not, I think sometimes we underestimate how sophisticated they can be about these things. And so with the examples I was giving is sort of, when we put ourselves in a position where people have harmful ideas, right? And I feel this way a lot. It's like, if we're not strategic or tactful with when we engage, we actually don't go up against the harmful ideas. So to me, like, I could just speak honestly. A lot of times when I see us engaging with religious people or anti-science people, I think these people are very anti-Black. They harbor very anti-Black ideas. And a lot of times, most of the times, they support actively institutions that do harm to Black communities. When I sometimes see people engaging with them, it feels like that's never important. Like that's never a priority. And so it's very hard to me to understand somebody as an ally to black people, when really I just feel like you're getting chummy with anti-black people with no interest whatsoever in actually addressing their anti-blackness or the harm that their idea causes to black communities. And so I think a lot of times in our community, the focus is so much on the other side and engaging with them, battling them, ostensibly to try to change their minds, instead of listening to marginalized people who are going to go, it's not a good look. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to change their minds. Mm-hmm. They've always been this way. I'm glad you've woken up. I'm glad you're no longer part of their group. I'm glad you're not holding those harmful ideas yourself anymore. But look, I could, we did the other day in Gather, I could show you a debate on this happening from 60 years ago. Yeah. Trust me, there's nothing that's going to come out of your mouth it's going to help.
It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it, how that debate, by the way, this is Black History Month, and it is very worth your while to go and have a watch at a Cambridge Union debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley. It's very, very worth your while. Because it's amazing how, what was the question specifically? Well, I won't get this exactly right, but essentially it was, is the American dream based on the suffering of black people? Yes. They used different language for it back in the day.
It's people of color, yes. Yeah. Why is that a question? Is it just me?
Yeah. So let me, and if I could,
and it was Bill Buckley saying, "Oh no, not at all," and it was James Baldwin saying, "You bet your ass it is," and here I am, folks, and he got it. Baldwin got a standing ovation from a British 1965. Let's remember, before the Empire brought all the people from away in and made jolly old England a much more diverse society than it was then. Baldwin got a standing ovation, and the proposition that yes, it damn sure is based on 400 years worth of exploitation, and the proposition was, but you have to listen to that debate and listen to the defense of remaining ignorant about the fundamental nature of colonialism and the exploitation of non-European peoples throughout the world, and particularly in the United States. You have to listen to the defense of that, because you're hearing the same ones today.
Yeah.
And even, it amazes me listening to, having heard the arguments for not wanting to end segregation, and now to not wanting to allow, all women to use the same locker room, bathroom, play the same sports. It's just, which is why I'm always preaching education. And I understand they don't want us to know our past, because it helps them recreate it today. All they have to do is just kind of remix the stuff that they were doing, whether it's the beginning of the country to its own citizens in Nazi Germany, or what have you. A lot of people have no idea that Hitler looked over at the United States with just twinkles in his eyes at what we had done to the natives, and what we had done to the lesser people here, and that we were his inspiration. But no, it's the Germans who are wrong, even though you're not going to see them repeating, at least right now, a lot of their pastels. But we'll regurgitate shit that happened in the 80s. It's just yes. Nobody remembers.
Yes. And to speak to specifically to what Steph B had asked for clarification on, what I meant so many times with like, you know, there'll be an issue of marginalization in a lot of our community will sort of see it as, well, you know, you missed an opportunity to win a debate. What I'm saying is, in a lot of sense, we're focused on the wrong people. And then what happens, how it plays out, sort of stepping back and looking at it again from sort of a sociological perspective, is a lot of times people who also are anxious to see us win these engagements, they agree. And that forms a sort of consensus. That consensus is concerned about the debate, not the marginalized people. And so then rather than us forming a consensus that stands in solidarity with marginalized people, we form a consensus that actually sometimes tell marginalized people, well, why couldn't you handle it? You should have had thicker skin. On and on down the line, because we want to score points for our side. And that's what I'm saying in terms of, I'm not saying the way you go in prepared is wrong. I'm saying sometimes we're just thinking out loud. If we considered a different perspective as the focus, we might change tactics, or we might think about these situations a bit differently. And that's very hard for us to do, because a lot of us still have not realized that even when we care about marginalized groups, we have been inundated in a patriarchal culture that tells us to use patriarchal means to care about marginalized people, and that's never going to work. What I meant with the recruitment aspect is then a big part of this is it becomes part of a person's star turn on either side, right? Either somebody new on our side who's taking on all the bad guys, or a new bad guy who's coming into all our spaces seeking debates and engagement and all this stuff with people. Well, what happens is they're recruiting you over to them. Number one, they want you to sit down and dignify a lot of their nonsense, so that way they can look and tell the rest of us, oh, look, this is one of the good ones. He'll come get in our sandbox and build a sandcastle with us. Why won't you play with us? You're doing it wrong, right? And also, they're getting you to focus on them rather than putting more spotlight on your marginalized voices, putting more spotlight on people who are going to bring you the real stuff that's going to help us organize, that's going to help us make a difference, that's essentially going to help us fight against these people. They want you, you're so good at this. I got another friend you should talk to, and why don't you go over here, and why don't you go over here, right? And then the part I meant when I said they're also bringing them into our community is people go, oh, I saw you on so-and-so with debating so-and-so, or having a conversation with so-and-so, so now I'm watching your channels. Well, where we previously had a pretty progressive, tight space, a lot of marginalized people felt comfortable, we were doing our thing. Now we go in there and we got to debate why we use pronouns. We got to have fools up in here saying, is this or that really racist? I don't really see the connection, right? And then for a lot of times, we're not as comfortable in those spaces anymore, because this was a place I felt cool. Now I feel like my identity is the topic of discussion all the time and is really up for debate. And the sad part is we're marginalized people, we're minorities. So if you're just paying attention to the numbers, you may not even notice. Because 3 or 4 marginalized people dipped and aren't comfortable watching your streams anymore, but there's 6 or 7 new people from the other side who want to keep you on this engagement topic. So all you know is, hey, I grew a little bit when I did that. Hey, I got a lot of extra views and comments when I did that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the funny things about having a thick skin and all of this stuff, and believe me, I've heard this comment in back and forth, and it's like, yeah, I'm a tough old broad, but should I have to be?
Right.
I mean, the thing is, there's an insistence. Have a tough skin, buck up, don't be a crybaby, etc. and so forth. We hear it all the time. And if you are, you're one of the good ones. If you say, hey, wait a minute, this is unjust. These ideas that you harbor are hurting people. And you don't see the hurt because you're not those people.
Right.
They can disappear. And if they're like me, they'll disappear with a thick skin. Nevertheless, they will still be disappeared
Yeah.
And that serves your interest, not mine or anyone else's. The diminishment of society as a whole to exclude people of different experiences, different backgrounds, different ways of growing up, different ways of seeing the world is immense. Diversity matters in diversity matters in biology, diversity matters in all of this stuff. But there's a paradox involved there. You can have very diverse ideas that wind up with, some of those ideas may wind up with horrible results for the whole.
Yeah, and I don't think that people don't get it. And I understand that they don't get it, but it's a little annoying. There's a reason that there are only a few women here. And I don't think there's enough people that know what I'm talking about to even understand what I'm talking about. To the women in this community, it's very apparent. And I wish more people were open-minded to it. And you're not. And I know this because even when I try to bring things up, it's just like, oh, no, no, that's not right. It's not even like, wait, I've never heard this before. What do you mean? It's just like, no, you're the only person that's ever said this. It's not right. I would have heard this before. And I'm like, I know you've heard it before. I've seen you see it before. You're not, whoa, sorry. You're not seeing it through the correct lens. This is confirmation bias, where you're seeing what you want to see through the lens that you want to see it. And I would like to see a more diverse community. I really do, but I don't even feel comfortable at this point. And I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anybody. I'm really just doing this to open people's eyes, because this is what we're talking about today. Wait 1 second.
Sorry, mine's got some people in the house. It certainly happens.
Cool. Yeah. I think I can't wait for to come back and finish that thought, because I think it's a very, very productive thing. It hinges on that issue of how do you discuss these things, and without running up against that wall that says, I've never heard that before. And I've never heard that before, which is followed by, out come the earplugs. They go in and they not hear it in real time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really all I'm saying.
Follow on with that.
I mean, and again, I am not blaming anyone in particular. I understand, again, psych major. I understand confirmation bias. I understand that you don't know what you don't know, and the nuances to everything. I was having this conversation I was having on I think either Beck's channel. I think it was Beck's channel with Ember, who was saying, I don't think it's that hard to, just not assume pronouns. And I'm like, we're not there yet. It's there. I would love to they, them, everybody, but outside of this space, I'm just gonna piss off everybody I meet, and I don't have the energy for all that. And right now, and I feel bad saying this out loud, but it's almost easier just to piss off a trans person, have them correct me, and then move forward with the corrected pronoun than to, I feel like I'm doing more damage the other way to trans people. You know what I mean?
Quickly on that subject, if you don't know and you just assume, and it's not necessary to ask. If you don't know, assume and greet somebody and use their own the pronouns that they prefer not to be addressed with. They'll tell you.
Right.
And then you will know. They won't be pissed off. The only time they'll be pissed off is when it's done repeatedly.
Right. Or without
over regard. And over and over again.
I do it repeatedly.
And over and over.
But
over again without correction, and right. At which point, and and there's a wide range of latitude depending on the individual person, depending
Right.
on the relationship that they have with the individual
Mhm.
concerned, that is consistently either misgendering them, using their dead name,
Right.
blah 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 blah. At some point, it becomes,
Yeah, it's
what are
yeah,
you doing here?
right. Right.
Because
No,
when it
and
is
I don't
done
mean to derail.
publicly, et cetera, and so forth, but
Right.
but trans people aren't going to be angry if it is a just a slip, especially not early in, if they are transitioning early in the process, and and there is history between you
Yeah,
and
it's harder when it's history.
someone else.
And
But
Durante is right. It's like
after
somebody
10
mispronouncing your name.
years, it gets a little old.
No, Durante is right. It's like somebody mispronouncing your name, which happens to me a lot. And I'm not trying to say it's like that. I'm just trying to use that as an example where you have people that are just genuinely trying to do the
The only
best thing. And I
the only
see
the,
that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
the only reason I bring that up is because that is a narrative. Oh,
Mhm.
these trans people, they get offended every time you, and
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
not the case.
No, and that was
That's
my point.
just not the case.
Where I feel like part of me feels like I'm sacrificing you because it's just like, well, it's just easier to mispronounce you. You'll correct me, and then I'll know going forward, and I'll move. I know I'll move forward in good faith. I would love to have it where we're just not assuming everybody's they them until they tell you otherwise. But I don't know that that's not still misgendering, and I'm going back and forth with the trans community on that. Not here. You guys are really cool in my community. Um, it's just you guys all have your own communities and you know what I'm going through, but it's more about people moving forward in good faith. Like I was saying earlier, I understand that everybody here is moving forward in good faith, but I think that part of we talk a lot about white privilege, but I don't think you understand like your own privilege, and just understanding what each of those is, whether it's male privilege, or I don't know. I have North privilege. There's a lot of stuff I don't have to deal with just living in the North. I have money privilege. I have, cute privilege. There's a lot of things that just don't readily. I have cis privilege. There's a lot of things that don't readily come to mind, and I try to take stock of that when I interact with someone else because I want to make them feel comfortable. I want to make them feel comfortable here in this community, because part of what we're trying to do is normalize skepticism, and we're not going to do that if we're constantly turning people off. And I trying to get it back in line, kind of with the note of the show, is understanding how social aspects of yourself get in your own way, to getting what you want, and being more aware of that. And if you could do something small, like understanding why there's so few women in the community, and you may think, oh, well, there's a lot more than there used to be. Yeah, sure. But who used to be here? Are all the faces mostly new? There were a lot of women here when I got into the community 5-6 years ago. I've been here 7 years. I can tell you who was here 7 years ago. I do remember who was here 5 years ago. I don't see most of them. I miss, I don't see Marty as much as I used to. I don't see a secular pagan mom. I might see like once every other month. I know Sassy Atheist is no longer an atheist, but I used to see her in more spaces, and I could go on, but like there's just so many women that have been replaced. And again, I love the newbies. I want more people to come in, but my concern is that they're not going to feel welcome and they're going to go away too, and not just the women. But just being aware of, and I'm not saying that you have to open yourself up to everybody and be accommodating or whatever, but you don't have to be an actively turning people off to the community. And no, it's not your responsibility to make other people comfortable, But if you care about your own personal mission of wanting people to think more skeptically because it makes your life personally better, this is one of those steps. Just
Kip
being
Davis has
people,
an interesting
you know?
has an interesting thing in the side chat saying, I wonder if there are more women in the online atheist community as in the Christian apologetics community. I'm sure there must be, but it's an interesting comparison / contrast, and I think that would be an interesting thing to know. And from my observation, this is completely anecdotal. I see the role that similar patterns of behavior within the Christian apologetics community as there are for particularly women who aren't elevated in their platforming within this community. In other words, voices silenced, et cetera, and so forth in discourse. It's just it's beyond atheism, theism. It's a cultural approach that may be a hangover from the religious traditions of the West. I don't know, but I do. Just again, anecdotally, it just feels that way. But I will say, I think there are more prominent voices, women's voices, talking about science, probably a little bit recently, to be honest. Talking about science, talking about philosophy, talking about scholarship, because of the societal change that has given women access to education, training, resources. And this is exactly what the more conservative elements in all communities would like to pull the plug on.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I just, man, let me just say, Stephanie and Maya, I love y'all every day. I literally talk to both y'all almost every day of my life, but this is even a special conversation to get to share with our audiences, and this is wonderful. What I would say is the difference is we don't have patriarchy as a value.
Right. Yeah.
The problem is we still have patriarchy as a result of demographics.
Yeah.
And really, with all these things I've been talking about with the centering, that's kind of my issue, is that because of the demographics, we are trying to dismantle patriarchy with patriarchy, and that's not how you do it.
Right.
And so that's a big part of the issue here. Even so one of the things I wanted to bring up is the culture. Like, a lot of the way certain debates are held is a reflection of a patriarchal culture. So if you guys do check out the conversation the debate that Stephanie's recommending, one of the things that will strike you is that James Baldwin has to go into this very white world where people have decided to put on tuxedos and suits and sit there and have a very high scholarly, very formalized debate about, you know, if the American dream was built on the back of black people, which to most black people sounds like a very stupid question, right? And so there's this way in which I, as a black person watching this, have to fight that rage and watch him fight his rage and decide we're going to do this sort of in an academic and scholarly way. And so one of the side effects I see of that is so many of these issues, they sort of miss the boat. A lot of times we go into these conversations, be they about philosophy, science, whatever it might be, and a lot of us are so excited to show what we know that we get into these like graduate level conversations. Oh, let me show you how much I know about genetics. Let me show you how much I know about phylogeny. And literally, this is stuff I can tell you, at least when I hear biology as the topic and Kip can speak to biblical stuff. this is stuff literally I wouldn't talk to somebody about till they were second or third year graduate student. And so it's not, to me, an effective way to change regular folks' minds on things. But because of the patriarchal culture we all come from, we want to emulate the academic scholarly form without recognizing all the cultural biases built into it that may stop it from reaching the people that we intend to reach. And I also just want to say part of it too is people like Kip Davis being here, right? Because Kip has platform, Kip has voice. This space knows who he is because of the privilege that a lot of us get from being academics who have expertise in relevant topics to this community. But so many people who say, I'd love to see this community be more diverse. I'd love to see this community focus on non-academics and smaller platforms. Don't show up for non-academics and diverse voices in smaller platforms. And so just as something as simple as being here and listening to this says, I care enough, and then sends out the bat signal that this is part of concern for these issues, is the effect that they have on these communities.
You know, there's no cachet in being a sailmaker. That's except you get to go.
It's a problem. It's a problem. But hey, wow. But you have a voice on these issues, especially when it comes to women in sports and LGBTQ issues that nobody's touching. Nobody, and we appreciate you.
Well, very few have actually engaged with those issues on a personal level. Very few people have ever been affected, which is all the more infuriating when you see the level of vitriol and debate around those issues, because, you know, I can count on two hands the number of people that I personally know who are touched by that particular debate, and being, you know, it's just so ridiculous, and it just hasn't been an issue for 30 years anyway. Yes, within the realm of participation, it's been an issue, but it's been talked about. Just like, you know, just like issues of suffrage. I mean, in women's suffrage case, that issue was settled in the 1920s, in the last century, 100 years ago. And an issue like women's reproductive choice was settled 50 years ago, or at least we thought. You know, we've had these debates, and what is happening currently is that a number of people would like to relitigate those issues, including relitigating the issue of slavery. The Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the House refused to comment on the issue of slavery on a news story that showed his affiliation with a religious group who literally, not academically, but literally, propound the issue that slavery is A-OK with the good Lord above. Yeah. And, you know, and when you get somebody saying, well, you know, the representative doesn't want to comment on that, it's like, holy fuck, that's disturbing.
Every other country has put this issue to bed, and it's back on the counter. And I'm not being facetious. This isn't a slippery slope. This isn't me I'm not fear mongering. Read the 2025.
Yeah.
It's frightening, and I really, really, really hope that no one takes any of our rights for granted, the way we have with abortion. Because if there's one thing that we know, it's that no one's safe right now. I mean, unless you're a rich white man, and in which case, I mean, you're safe, but please help. You know, like,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a call. How do we do? This is a good question. How do we frame a call to? Should it be a call to action or a call to awareness or both when we're having these discussions with people? And how do we do that effectively without, as Maya is at pains to point out, losing our goddamn minds over it?
No, I mean, worry never solved anything. I try to remind myself that it's inevitable. Jay, I'm going to let you talk. I just want to say this one thing. I want everybody to, as it comes to fighting for your rights, I want everybody to remember that I need you to get comfortable with the thought of being uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable, especially for injustice. It's okay if you upset someone. It's okay to speak for other people, even if the issue has nothing to do with you. Even in my personal life, especially my personal life, not because like I'm trans or, because it's going to affect me if people treat trans people one way or another, but this is the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where all Americans are treated the same. And my America includes trans people. So when I find somebody on the street that is talking disparagingly about trans people, even though it has nothing to do with me, it has nothing, none of my trans friends even live in my state. So if everybody in my state wanted to be a transphobe, it would still not affect any of my friends. But like, that's not the America that I want to live in. I want to be in a place where people fight for injustice, and be it, at the barbershop or the beauty salon, I guess as my case may be, at work, on the street, standing next to two strangers that I'll never see again, next to the bus stop. I want to leave seeds because I know that two things. If I can get somebody to think about this one thing, they'll perhaps think about other things that they're not knowledgeable on, and maybe it gets them thinking more strategically about other things, which will make them can affect something, either them or someone else down the line. And I know it might sound like a huge maybe, but we've all been the beneficiaries of that and changing our own lives. And so I do want you to think about that it's not a requirement of every single time you have to check in with yourself and know what you can and can't handle at that moment, but just to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, speaking out for others. And that's not to say make enemies of everybody, but just saying, the right has a narrative on this, and it's not right. And I need you to understand that this isn't how this group thinks or what this group wants, or just saying that to someone, even if you don't know them, it's especially if you don't know them, because it doesn't hurt you at all. You can walk away. They can be irked with you at that moment. You can walk away from them, never see them, still plant that seed for the to make it a little bit easier for the next guy that's willing to push a little bit further. Because what planting seeds is just inching a little bit each conversation, each time. And if you can even get the ball rolling, you don't have to finish it, just get the ball rolling. And not just for trans people, but for Black people, for women, for the disabled, everyone. Just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And, I'll pass it to you guys.
Right. I think that's important. I think that, first of all, having some empathy with the position of marginalized people, whether they're a large group of marginalized people in certain senses, women, that's like 51%. You can't say that's a minority, can you? When it's 51% of the goddamn human race. But it's important to listen to the community you want to speak with and on behalf of. It's important to listen to what's really at the core. What are the issues that are important to them, whether it's people of color or LGBTQ people or specifically trans people. Listen. And remember that allyship is something that is conferred on you by the group you want to speak with and for. So listening and understanding the issues are really, really important, because very frequently people will I've seen this in the civil rights struggle. I saw it, I saw it in many struggles throughout my lifetime. People of very good will and very well-meaning will say something that is actually not helpful in pursuit of bringing understanding toward that community, because they have, despite their best efforts, feel that they know enough. So as Karaya said on a panel at Better in 2022, listen, speak with us, not for us.
Right.
Put yourself there. I mean, one of the great reasons for the success of the civil rights struggle of the 50s and 60s was that kind of allyship, where people would listen to the people trying to effect major change. And I to this day, I don't think people realize how entrenched Jim Crow was in the South and the effort that was required to change that, and the benefits that the South have accrued to the South in terms of economy, in terms of development, since Jim Crow disappeared. And that is something that even Southerners would dispute to this day. Yeah. But if you look at Atlanta in 1965 and Atlanta in upcoming to 2025, there is a world of difference.
Yeah.
A world of difference. Same goes for Houston. Same goes for Montgomery. Same goes for Selma. Same goes for Birmingham. Same goes for Jackson, Mississippi. Same goes for a whole bunch of places. But there is a movement of retrenchment on the part of people that feel they have lost their privilege. And out of that sense of loss comes a tremendous amount of fear, and they exploit that fear, whether it's towards Black people or trans people, of all of these groups. But if you really want to be an ally, you need to listen and not dismiss the voices that are, to your point, Maya, uncomfortable for you to hear.
Yeah.
I bring up Stokely Carmichael, for example, or Fred Hampton, who, people who lost their freedom or indeed their lives because their voices were too uncomfortable for people to listen to or hear.
Yeah. To me, this all comes down to an ask that is quite uncomfortable and requires a lot of nuance. I think this topic that came up of slavery like hit me in the face because I think it's a really great example. The popularization, this topic becoming popular has really like blown my mind and made me like question everything, because I see these conversations happening and it feels incredibly insensitive to me to go into these conversations and debate the obvious about, is slavery bad? Why is slavery bad? Does the Bible really endorse slavery? What form of slavery does the Bible endorse? Yada, yada, yada. It's terrible. And I sit there and I go, are y'all not seeing the connection to popularizing the slavery apologetics here, and the popularization of the slavery apologetics we see playing out at the government level with our elected officials? And sometimes it feels like that connection isn't there. And it's interesting because you have your Kip Davises, you have your Josh Bowens, and again, I want to tip the cap not just to those creators, but also to this community for being a learning community. We benefit from having these experts who go, you're probably on the right side of this, but I'm going to give you the real. I'm going to arm you with the research, and I'm going to arm you with we're really going to go there because I have expertise in this field and I can share that with you. And that is wonderful because it powers us up. Uncle Bobby and I have done streams about, say, Derek's documentary about does the Bible endorse slavery, because it gave us a chance to lend our voices as Black men to them speaking to that issue in a way that we were comfortable with, because it was academics, it was a documentary, on and on and on. But people need to also realize, if you watch that episode, we had to cut it short. Why? Because it's just a bit too much, right? Especially it was, Uncle Bobby got overwhelmed. He's had murders in his family for trying to give, hung Black people decent burials. There's a cost to us to have these conversations. And again, it's good. You want your students to go from the lecture hall where they're listening to the PhDs and then go out into the world and have their own conversations, have their own meaningful engagements where they put what they've learned into practice. But there needs to be the consideration of the wider picture, because the other side is listening too. And as much as we walk away from some of this is great, I learned my talking points, I can speak more confidently, the other side is learning their talking points as well. Okay? And so we're not saying don't engage. We're not saying you have to engage this way every time. We're just saying there needs to be a fuller consideration of perspectives, who benefits from the engagement, and then listening to the marginalized voices. And I think that's the hard part, because so often we're saying, I know you think you did a good thing, and you may have done that thing very well, but we're not sure it's a good thing for people to be doing. And we just want people that are willing to be open to that perspective. And then from there, it's back to making informed decisions on their own.
We're coming up. We just passed the hour and a half mark, and this has been just a tremendous discussion. Maya, I want you to get in the last word. I have a few things to say, and then we'll be thanking our patrons, without whom we would never be able to present these talks. Don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven, Tuesdays, Secular Soapbox, Thursdays, The Sunny Spot, which I think Jay was on,
this week? Yes, it was great.
On Saturday, The Global Atheists, and this show, of course, Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk on Sunday, which is a call-in show. So also thanks to our patrons, Eric Ozals, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Weissman, Cindy Plaza, Sonny Shell, Aaron Coulson, Phil Calderon, Amanda McLeod, and Logan Fisher. And Maya, I wanted to be sure you had the last word, and then we'll do our thank yous and tell everybody where you can be found, etc., and so forth. So,
I've done a lot of talking, and yeah, this one's really near and dear to my heart, just because I see so many people doing it badly. I really, and
I hope we didn't fuck up on you, Maya.
No. This is just like being in Gather talking to you guys.
Yes, definitely.
You know, I mean, just so comfortable. And I really want my thing is just getting people being comfortable with who they are. I want to grow our community. I know, Jay, that's something that's near to your own heart too. And I want people comfortable asking questions. And I think, the one thing I did want to, Jay, you were talking about this earlier, and I wanted to like really beat it home. I want to normalize fucking up. Sorry, I know it's a bad no word.
I fucked up plenty. You know it.
Yes, you have. And so have I.
We all
Jay,
have, absolutely.
Jay,
Yeah.
I've been Gather screaming at
Look,
Jay.
Maya's pulled me aside and Gather multiple times. It happens. It's life, you know.
And you know what? I was with my mod team the other Wednesday, and I was just like, you know what? I'm clearly outvoted. There's something that I can't see that you guys are all seeing, and I'm just gonna say that my blinders are on, and I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna say I'm not seeing it, but I'm gonna defer to your judgment.
Yes.
Because I mean, I'm outvoted. It was like 10-1. It was just really, you know. But I've been in those meetings too, where you know, they have the CEO. It's like, okay, we're gonna talk this through. It's like, well, we think, no, you're wrong. I'm right. I'm like, well, just send an email. Why are we even here? Be open to changing your mind and be open to being wrong. And guys, when you see people that are wrong, don't be like me.
You know, we can all afford we can all afford to take skeptical positions toward our own selves and examine.
I want everybody to
not
be
just
open
not
to
just
being wrong.
Yeah,
but
right, exactly.
Nobody's gonna. I mean, because you have to. Failure is a part of success. I want to normalize that. You don't know what you did right if you got it right the first time. Trying and failing, and that failure is where you learn what you did right and why you were successful and how to gain longevity in that success. And we need to normalize this. And I say all the time, I don't believe in cancel culture. It's just people being held responsible for their actions. And the difference with people like Bill Maher, Richard Dawkins, is that when people are like, Joanne, people say you're wrong and they double down. When you're wrong, and I've done this on my own show. People are like, you're wrong. And I was like, oh, I'm wrong? Cool. Sorry. I'll defer to you because you're clearly right. Or you have like, I have a atomic physicist on my channel, and it's like, okay, this isn't my field. I'm open to being wrong on this. And I can tell you from experience that when you're wrong, you say you're wrong and you shut up and listen. People don't berate you. People respect you as much as they always did. You're not required to be right on everything always. People understand that you're just a person. Nobody's going to hold you to a higher standard than you hold yourself. So just go out on the limb, make the mistake, correct the wrongs, and be a better person. That's what happens when you're wrong. And I want to normalize that. And I want the community to understand that when people are wrong, there needs to be forgiveness and a pathway. Well, there needs to be acceptance of a true apology, and a pathway to forgiveness. And even for people like Doug, I haven't seen it. I have not seen it.
But if that day should come.
Maya, Jay, this has been a great conversation. And to those of you who've listened, or those of you who listen in the future, if we're effing up, leave a comment in chat in the comments below. Like or dislike, whatever what you've seen here. get in touch with us
Leave a
individually.
dislike. Tell me why
get
I'm
in touch
wrong.
with
Skeptic,
because
Skeptic Haven is right
we're not
about
gonna
this.
learn.
So thumbs up right now. Right now, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, just be in touch, because we're not going to know when we're screwing up unless we're told. And if we're or we're not going to know we're presenting something that resonates. And it's always welcome to hear. I, at least speaking for me, and I know probably for Maya and Jay and Skeptic Haven, we want to hear back from the people we're presenting to and engaging with, because we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want engagement. So thank you all for coming, and I guess take us out.
Yeah, no, Bad Science Sunday tomorrow. You can see me and Jay.
Yeah,
Stephanie
I'll
will
be
there
on
too.
Bad Science Sunday, and I'm at Pocket
There you
Locker
go.
86 at my Adkisson and at Steffi Cath.
All right. Nice.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, 'cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong.
Hey, thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. And again, leave a comment in the down below here, down there. And support the channel, subscribe, like, all of the good things, and appreciate your coming. Cheers.